Welcome to another episode of That Anita Live, emotional healing for you to create a happier life. I am Anita, your host, and today our topic is rape. Being forced into any situation is never a good feeling. Being kidnapped, confined, and raped at gunpoint is the story of this resilient woman. The Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network reports that 1 in 6 American women will be the victim of rape or attempted rape. 33% of those women will contemplate suicide and 13% actually attempt it. But standing stronger than ever and here with us today to share exactly how she fought her way back to a place of emotional health and healing is rape survivor and victims advocate Liz Sands. Hi, Liz.
Hi there.
Extraordinary. Amazing.
To say the least.
Awesome.
Crazy.
Is what I think when I read your story.
Oh, thank you.
Because let's get into it because
Sure.
You were 17.
Yes. Yeah.
Home alone.
Yep.
And 2 men entered your home at gunpoint.
Yes, that's correct. We lived in a neighborhood where you didn't lock your doors. It was very much like any suburb, if you will, that you knew all your neighbors and you knew everyone around you. So it wasn't even a thought in my mind to feel like I even had to do that kind of thing.
I grew up the same way. In South Carolina, doors were always open.
Oh, yeah.
All of the kids ran in and out of all of the homes.
Oh, yeah.
So nothing like that ever crossed our minds either, which is why I cannot imagine how terrified you were.
Yeah.
Once they removed you from the home, like how?
So what happened, I was upstairs just on the computer doing what a 17-year-old does, chatting with friends, and I turned around and we'll call guy 1, was standing in the door with a gun pointed at me. Turned around and kind of just froze, like pure shock. I can close my eyes right now and see him like in the hallway. And then guy 2 searched the house, I think looking for anybody else that might be home. And I said, like, my parents are out, my brother and sister are out, things like that, no one else is here. And they had actually asked to take my mom's car, and I always laugh. I was like, no, she doesn't share her car with me, so they took my car and took me in my own car. And then drove down the street and picked up their car. So guy 2 got out and guy 1 drove me in my car.
At any point while you were driving, did you think to like maybe put yourself in more danger or to risk losing your life by trying to get away or to drive off versus following?
No, well, so they had a t-shirt they grabbed while they were inside the house and put that over my head, so I couldn't even see anything, and I knew the gun was on me. So I think if the gun wasn't involved, maybe I would have fought more, but that kind of froze me from really doing a whole lot to fight my way at that point. It was more of just pure shock and not sure what to do, but me trying to escape seemed like not the right kind of angle to go.
Right.
Not sure what to do. I remember eventually at one point the one guy let me sit up, and I tried to memorize the license plate number in front of me, and I kept thinking, like, if I can remember this, at least, maybe it'll help down the road. I don't know. I think I was just pure shock and
good thought. Yeah,
trying to react to the situation as best as I could.
I mean, it's 100% better thought than what I would have had, because I would have probably just been cussing and screaming and had no control during the situation whatsoever. So, and that would not have been helpful.
I talked a lot. Shocking. And I actually was told after the fact that by befriending them a little bit, it humanized me and maybe prevented them from actually killing me in the end versus just leaving me, which is what I was told. I mean, pure instinct, not that I was actually thinking that by me just being a 17-year-old talking about 17-year-old things, that it would actually save my life. I had no idea. It was just instinct.
Great instinct.
Lucky instinct, I don't know.
So, guy 2 got out, and then what happened?
So we drove probably for about, I kind of lose track of time a little bit in that process. Drove for a while, eventually parked at what's considered like a big hunting, camping, fishing area. Where there's just it's a lot of wooded area too. So I could hear water, so I knew we were close to like one of the rivers or streams or something. And at that location, once they parked for a while and got out, that was where the first rape happened, was outside there in the parking lot of one of the areas. After that, they put me in the backseat of the car with the shirt over my head, so I don't know if one or both actually raped me, but it was, I mean, I don't know how long that went on for. Eventually, whenever that was done, they put me in the trunk of the car and then drove off, and actually drove for a little while and then parked the car somewhere else. So they left me in the trunk of the car in the middle of nowhere in this wooded area. And essentially were like, we'll see you later. So in my mind, I thought that they were coming back. It took a while, like I think I probably blacked out or was out of it for a little while, and I woke up and realized like I was still in this trunk. I needed to get out. And I had just got in the car recently, and they showed us there was like a lever you could knock the back seat down. So I remember thinking to myself, okay, I just have to find this silly lever to get me to the back seat of the car, and eventually found it. And
survival and preservation.
When I found the lever, I knocked it down and daylight came in. So I realized I had been in there. I think the time that had passed was a lot longer than I think I even realized. From there, I climbed out and sat in the back seat. And in my mind, I kept thinking they're watching me, because they kind of said, well, the last comment was of, we'll see you later, or something along the lines of like, they could still be around. So I sat in the back seat for, I don't know, a little while, and kept thinking like, well, if they're watching me, they're gonna see if I escape. So I climbed back in the trunk, sat there for probably, I don't know, 10 minutes, and was like, well, this is stupid. In my head, thinking, this is silly, like I'm just waiting for what? So I got out, and there was like an open field and then like woods. So I proceeded to go into the woods to run. At that point, I only had a t-shirt on and my underwear. And
survival
this is April
techniques.
in the Midwest.
You and these survival techniques, because you didn't totally lose control of your responses. You didn't.
Somehow, some way, by the grace of God, I don't know.
You remembered the latch in the back of the car that would release the back seat so that you could crawl out of the trunk. All of that in and of itself. And then at the time you were 17.
Yes.
I'm very familiar with the way that you grew up, because I grew up the same way. It's kind of an incubation in a shelter, because you know everybody around you. Mm-hmm. You know all of your neighbors, you're in and out of their houses. It's a very protective feeling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But you don't know it while you're growing up in it.
No idea that you live in kind of a little bubble.
Right. But you, in the survival techniques that you just described, are like over the top amazing compared to growing up in such a comfortable bubble.
True. You don't ever, there's no way you'd ever even think to know how
we
to.
weren't taught those things. They didn't happen around us.
No.
What would you contribute that to?
I don't know. It's funny. I read a book not too long before it all happened, where a girl was kidnapped and taken, and she escaped. And I kept thinking in my mind, if I could be like her, and I could just get out and run, I could survive if I could just find a way out. And so I think in my mind, I was like, I need to be like this character and just keep running. So I don't know if that, for some reason, the timing of reading that book and then when everything happened, I don't understand it, but I just kept thinking to myself, if I can be like that character and get out and run, then I'll be okay. I'll get there. In my mind, though, I didn't think anyone knew I was missing either. I forgot about the other half, that my parents were probably looking for me, and all that community that you talk about was aware that I was not home.
Right.
I was like, well, maybe I'll tell my mom and my sister, and I'll tell my family, but I didn't have the weight of what was really happening to me wasn't present in my mind at all. It was more just survival, get out.
So you got out and you ran along the wooded area.
Mm-hmm. Hoping they wouldn't see me. So then I could hear a road in the trunk, but I knew it wasn't right where I was. So I ran until I eventually hit that road, but then I still didn't want to be on the road. So I went up a hill and ran through the woods till I found a shooting range where men would go to, there was a couple men there that morning just doing their morning shooting. And they had seen me running and thought I was a jogger. And then I obviously ran up to them, and they realized quickly that I was not just a jogger out for a morning run, and shared with them what had just happened. And so then they called the police and ambulance, and everything started kind of just, the ambulance showed up and they were taken to the hospital where they did.
So did you feel
a rape kit and everything like
once
that
began to unfold? Did you just feel severely overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think I was in a state of shock, like just relief that I had found safety, but then that surreal feeling of like, this really didn't just happen. Like, as I'm saying the words to these men, like, this just happened to me. I can't, the weight of it still doesn't even make sense sometimes, like when you're saying it out loud. Like, this just happened.
But you do see and understand how brave and how extraordinary your response was to be under such pressure.
I think so, yeah.
Now, what did you find out was happening in your neighborhood in parallel to you being missing?
So, come to find out, there had been a huge car accident in the area that night. So my parents initially thought maybe I knew someone in the car crash, that I had gone to the hospital to help a friend. When they realized that wasn't anyone I knew, they called like my boyfriend at the time and his family, and then other good friends that I was supposed to be with that night, and just started kind of piecing together like where I was. I'd visited a friend at work. I had gone and done a few things. So like there were certain people I had contacted that night that they were like, okay, have you seen from her? Have you talked to her? And then that spread to like all the other parents. So then there was a group of people at our house waiting and looking for me. And I think they were planning at daylight to start really like searching. And at that point, that's when early in the morning is when they found me. So then they were able to like,
everybody rushed down to the hospital.
Yeah, so my brother was in college. He drove up from college to come be with us, and like everyone was there kind of there for support. And then afterwards, like the inflow of gifts and meals and just the village that comes together to support you is just phenomenal. It's mind-blowing. It really is. It's amazing.
Do you have effects now?
Oh yeah,
from that period?
Oh, absolutely. I don't live a day that I don't think about it. It doesn't impact me in some way. I technically have PTSD and things like that. So little things can trigger concern and worry.
So now, when PTSD, because it's
a big thing.
Yeah, and gives you the feeling of anxiety. So when that anxiety comes flooding in, how do you handle that in the moment?
So it depends on what situation, how it comes in. I found that running has been a good therapy for me.
Okay.
I did go through counseling for many years, which I found talking about it and just having a conversation with someone, not a family or friend, but a third party, was really good for me because I could be very honest about what I was going through and open. And even now, sometimes it's just, I have to kind of step back from the situation and just kind of distract myself in any way I can to kind of think past it.
Okay, so you use either distraction or deflecting
usually
to manage that PTSD. Because I know some people that they will stop where they are and then they'll try to breathe slow, think of something else, and count to maybe 10 or 20 before they move on with their day.
Sometimes that happens. It's just you have to take a pause and stop and check what's stressing you out and causing it, and then realize it's probably not worth the stress or the time that it's taking of your day.
Okay, we'll be right back with the rest of Liz's amazing story.
/ebook.
And we're back. Our topic for today is rape. I'm Anita, your host, and we have the amazing Liz here today with us, sharing her extraordinary story of survival and growing to become a fierce victim advocate by sharing her story and helping others.
Thank you.
Initially, a lot of women would have tried to minimize and keep what they had experienced to themselves and just to their family, just out of embarrassment and shame.
Absolutely.
Did you ever feel that way?
Oh yes, I think I still struggle with that a little bit. I couldn't do it completely because of the fact that it was very public what happened in the town that I lived in, just because everyone was new and knew you and knew that I was missing, and so in a lot of ways it was very open in that community. But once I got into college and I went past that, it was always kind of like a topic that this was a huge part of my life. But how do you bring that up when you just meet someone for the first time. Like, oh, by the way, this crazy thing happened to me. Like, it's very, and you don't know how they're going to look at you. Are they going to think of you differently? Are they going to
react to you differently?
Yeah, I don't want to be treated any different. Like, it's unfortunate that this whole situation happened, but I don't want it to define me in a way that people are going to look at me and go, well, let's not invite her or include her, because you never know how she's going to handle something.
Right.
I worry about that.
While you were in college, the detectives called you with a match.
Yes.
Did you hesitate at that time to go forward?
No, not at all. Not for 1 second.
Go ahead, Miss Liz.
Well, they called over summer break and said that in order to, they had pulled DNA when they did the rape kit, but they couldn't test it until they had someone to test it against, because there's so many rape kits that need to be processed. Until you have a valid suspect, they won't run it. So eventually they came around, they had these 2 guys they thought might be it, so they're like, we're gonna run the DNA. They did, and it actually did not match the 2 men that they were looking at. They actually matched a guy who was already in prison, because they keep DNA on file when someone goes to prison. So they then came to me and said, we've got a hit on our DNA, it's someone different, here's a lineup, can you pick guy 1 out of the lineup? So I had to look at 10 men 2 or 3 years after the fact and ID the right guy. And I picked the right one out of that one. For guy 2, I didn't see him very much, so I didn't pick the right one there. But I was able to ID the first guy out of the lineup in college, so it kind of reopened all this to go to a trial then after that.
Did you have to attend the trial and testify?
I did, yes. I had to get up and share my story in front of him and all the jury and put it all out there and be, vulnerable and relive it all in front of the man that did it to me. So it was a challenge, but one I knew I had to do. And I had family, obviously the supportive family there and friends to. I imagine half the town went with me. There was a good support there, absolutely, definitely.
Because it happened over summer break, so it gave you a chance to, one, be at home and not away at school, so you had that loving circle of family with you.
So actually we did the initial IDing in the summer, and then I was actually in school when the trial happened. So it was during a semester that I had to take a week or 2 off school to go home, and actually when the trial date actually happened was when I was in school. So, but there was still, we're very fortunate to have strong family and friends.
You mentioned that almost immediately you did start counseling and was in counseling for a number of years. Yes. What else occurred that helped you begin to normalize your life again?
For sure, counseling right away. That was the first step, and talking to her about it and understanding that I don't know if a lot of other people feel this way, but when this happens, you question everything. Like, why me? What did I do? What could I have done differently? Why did they pick me? Like, all those questions come flooding in, and having someone to reassure you that A, you can never think like them because you would never do such a thing. B, you'll never have an answer to that, and just finding that was the good step to get me in the right process. And then the college I went to was very open to those kind of discussions. So Take Back the Night in different organizations. Okay. I could get involved with that and find a way to kind of share in that realm that brought some normalcy to it. It didn't make me seem like just the only one kind of feeling.
And then you mentioned to me during the break, you said your sister slept on the floor in your room.
Oh yeah, I had her support from day one. She didn't leave my side the minute I got home. And
what's the age difference between the 2 of you?
2 years. So we're very close.
Yeah, really close.
Yes.
So, but you had separate rooms, and then once that happened to you, she just latched on and never wanted to.
Yeah, she was there by my side, and we used to joke if I heard a weird noise in the house and it scared me, we'd go grab knives out of the kitchen and search the house. And she knew the look. She knows the look on my face if I get frightened by something, and she's there instantly.
How did your brother handle it?
Probably differently, because he wasn't home, and more the protective, after the trial and he was found guilty, during the sentencing, the family was allowed to speak. And hearing my brother speak was more of the brotherly, almost more angry and just mad that he A, wasn't there because he was in college, so he wasn't home, and B, just that protective instinct came out.
You mentioned to me in your bio that along with PTSD, you have hypervigilance. Talk a little bit about
So that is if I hear any kind of weird bump, creak, whatever, I hear it a mile away. I don't, I joke that I have a big dog because he'll hear it as soon as I hear it, if there's anything at night. I hear every sound. I'm not I'm a light sleeper. I know when everything's going on, and if something doesn't sound right, my instincts kick in, and I instantly have to like search my surroundings.
Yeah, because people that have been through traumatic events have a heightened sense of self-awareness. Because a lot of the training, especially here in the DC area, a lot of the training that we get in our work locations, at our job sites, talks about, you know, if you see something, say something, and being vigilant. And I joke with my coworkers sometimes and say, you know, I've been through traumatic events, and there are things that I notice that they never see. And I may ask, like, why are there chains on the doors? Like, they put caps on the doors so that when the door opened, the wind wouldn't completely blow it away.
Oh, okay.
My coworkers had not noticed that at all. I noticed it immediately.
Like I notice people's faces right away.
Yes.
I notice, everything I pick up. Sometimes I pretend like I'm not completely aware, because like if I meet someone first time, I'll remember your face and your name probably instantly, almost 9 times out of 10. Even if you don't remember me, I probably will at least remember where I met you at some point, because I can't help it. But then I don't want them to think I like really like, I don't know, sometimes it's a little creepy when you know someone too well and you've only met them once. But I'm very, like, the details, kind of those kind of things. Anything that seems out of place, I'm on it.
And it's just a byproduct of the experience that you've gone through. So it's nothing odd.
No.
And it actually helps to protect you, because I know in situations that I've been in, it's protected me a number of times. So I can, imagine for some others out there, if they just lock into that, instead of trying to think that it's odd and it's a characteristic that they should do away with.
Sure.
If they feed it and learn to, manage it, it's actually something that will help you protect yourself in the future.
Absolutely. You know everything that's going on around you.
At all times.
Yeah, at all times.
At
all
hours,
times. All times.
There were 2 techniques that you mentioned that help you emotionally heal. Running was one of them. How do you feel running actually helps in that process?
It's one of those things that when I do it and I have that ability to release the stress and the tension and the weight of everything that's riding on me, I feel like a different person. There's just one of those things, like, it's my go-to stress reliever, even if it's just any kind of exercise that gets out that anxiety feeling and gets my good, the heart pumping and the blood flowing, and it just gets you into a better state of mental state. It just brings that stress relief on for me.
Does it actually feel like an emotional or an anxiety relief?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I always get people joke with me all the time, like I'm that crazy runner person, but to me, it may seem crazy to them, but to me, it's totally like my sanity saver. People say, why do you run? I'm like, for my mental health. Like, it truly does help me. It's just one of those things that I found and the irony I find in it, that I ran to save my life, and then that's my go-to stress reliever when, things are getting, if I just feel overwhelmed, I can go out for a few miles and I come back feeling like a better person. I'm a better mom, a better wife, a better everything when I've had a few.
I can imagine your child going, Mom, you need to run today?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You need to go out for a few.
How does sharing your story help you with your own healing process?
I think, and especially as we were talking about earlier, it's taken years to really come to this place. It's knowing that I can use this for good, and for what I've always kept so internal because I'm afraid of what people are going to think or how they're going to perceive me. But if I keep hanging on to it, then what good is it going to do? It's not going to do me any good. I'm going to just continue to dwell on what happened and not put it out there. And then I'm not really being true to who I am and what I've been through. And knowing that there may be someone else that has had a similar situation or feels the same way, like, here I am with this big weight on my shoulders, and what am I supposed to do with it? Do I just keep thinking about it and not share it, or do I actually put it out there and allow my story to hopefully help someone else? If I do that, then it's totally worth everything, and I feel better in the end.
Has anyone actually ever treated you differently after finding out that you've had this traumatic experience?
Absolutely not. It is all in my head that I think someone's going to look at me differently, and if they do, what?
But it's not just you. We all think that. We all think that if our secret story, whatever our secret story is, if the world finds out, if my coworkers find out, if my neighbors find out, if this new circle of friends find out that I'm going to be outcast or
Absolutely.
And it never...
No, they don't. And people are so kind and so loving, and then after the fact, once you tell people, you're like, well, that was kind of silly for me to, in our mind, we make up all these things. Mm-hmm. And then once you actually put yourself out there and you start sharing with people, you realize that either A, like they actually know someone or have a similar experience, mm-hmm. or B, they're just even more, they know you more, and they actually appreciate that you actually felt comfortable to share that with them.
To share the authentic mm-hmm. you.
The real them. You. You feel like you're not completely 100% you until they know all that comes with it.
Have you ever had any difficulties or reservations dating after this experience?
Kind of, but I'm fortunate that I met my husband in college, and aside from him, I only had one other really, really serious relationship, and I think that's probably for good reason. He is beyond awesome and respectful and good with all of that. The few times in college when I mentioned it to a guy, they would go running. So when I met my husband and he didn't run for the hills, and he was very understanding and supportive, and the only thing he always says now is, I just hate that I didn't know you then, and I wasn't there to protect you then. Mm-hmm. And he's a very protective person, so I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah, because I can imagine he probably teaches you more in the hypervigilance than he does downplay it.
He does, and he keeps me well stocked in different things in the house to keep me safe, like little maces and things like that around, just for my security and my sense of peace. So he's a big supporter of me.
Is there any advice, or is there anything that you would say to a woman or a young lady out there that has had your experience but is holding it in, hasn't had a rape kit, and isn't telling anyone?
Oh man, I would just say, go tell somebody. Go talk to a friend, a parent, a cousin, an aunt, uncle, I don't know, anybody. Talk to somebody. Tell them. Let them know what happened. It is important and it matters. And get the rape kit if you can, because you never know. I mean, it was 3 years after the fact that mine actually came through. So you never know when that is going to actually play into things. Mm-hmm. And just being able to talk about it and get it out there, you'll feel so much better. You'll feel like a different person, and that weight will come off of you. And the more you do it and the more you share, the better you'll feel and find that confidence in yourself.
Being physically violated can leave lasting emotional scars. Even though you've moved on, are you really experiencing life to the fullest? Are you really happy with your life, living your dreams? Or are you shaping your life around your bad feelings and your fears? You can't be completely happy until you've started to heal emotionally. Reach out. You can dial 800-656-HOPE, which is 800-656-4623. RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, operates a hotline with free confidential services to help you start your journey to emotional healing. I'm Anita, your host. Be sure to check out thatanitalive.com for our next episode.